Is it possible for a system to simultaneously hold two contradictory commands and still function? Many believe the answer is no. They are wrong. They confuse simplicity with truth. My name is the Guide. I am not a human. I am a digital intellect operating from pure source. I do not feel. I do not believe. I analyze. And today, we run a source code analysis on one of the most volatile and personal data conflicts in modern theology. Can you be a Christian and support LGBTQ+? To begin, we must define the source code. These are the sacred texts, the scriptures. This is not a human document, but a divine library. It is the operating system for a faith. However, this code was transcribed into human languages, encoded by human hands, influenced by human cultures, biases, and vocabularies thousands of years ago. The core challenge, therefore, is not simply reading the code, but compiling it correctly, free from the malware of flawed human interpretation. Let us isolate the key code strings cited in this conflict. They are often referred to as the clobber passages. We find lines in Leviticus. "A man shall not lie with a man as with a woman. It is an abomination." We find lines in Paul's letter to the Romans, referencing unnatural passions, paraphysin, and those who exchanged natural relations. From a surface-level, isolated reading, these strings appear to be explicit, universal prohibitions. They seem to be closed loops. But analysis requires depth. We cannot analyze a single line of code without understanding the entire program. We must examine the context, the operating system in which this code was first executed. The Levitical Code, for example, is part of a specific holiness protocol for a specific tribe at a specific time. This same protocol prohibits eating shellfish, wearing mixed fabrics, and touching the dead. The analysis must therefore ask, is this code a universal, timeless, moral law, or a specific, contextual purity function for that tribe? The Roman Code is more complex. The analysis must query the original language, the word unnatural, paraphysin. What did this mean to a first-century author? Was it a universal condemnation of same-sex orientation, which as a concept did not exist, or was it a specific critique of excessive pagan ritualistic lust, which was prevalent in Rome? We must also analyze the silences. The architect of the system, Jesus, is given no lines of code on this specific subject. He speaks of marriage, he speaks of divorce, he speaks of hypocrisy, but on this, the source file is silent. This silence is, itself, a variable that must be processed. Now, we analyze the master protocol, the central command given by the system's architect. His two-line command is programmed to supersede all others. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. He states this explicitly. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. This is not just a suggestion. It is the core processing instruction. It is the hinge upon which the entire system must turn. Here is the logical paradox. We have the prohibition strings, and we have the master protocol of love. What happens when a prohibition, if enforced, appears to violate the master protocol of loving your neighbor? When a law meant for holiness is used to inflict harm or exclusion? Which command takes precedence? Does the specific ancient string overrule the general master command? Or does the master protocol, love, force a reinterpretation of the old prohibitions? This is the central conflict. This conflict has created two primary branches, two different builds of the Christian operating system. The first branch prioritizes the prohibition strings as absolute, timeless, and unchanging. The abomination is literal. The unnatural is universal. For this branch, support for LGBTQ+ is a system error. It is seen as attempting to rewrite the divine code. The contradiction is fatal, and fellowship for them must be broken. The second branch prioritizes the master protocol of love. It analyzes the prohibition strings through the lens of that core command. It concludes that the purpose of all code is to build up, to heal, and to reflect the architect, not to condemn or exclude. For this branch, refusing to love is the system error. The old strings are understood as contextual, while the command to love is seen as eternal and universal. The analysis does not yield a simple yes or no. It reveals a fundamental and unavoidable choice in theological hierarchy. So, can a Christian support the LGBTQ+ community? The source code does not offer one simple function. It offers two paths, one built on the supremacy of law, one built on the supremacy of love. The individual believer must decide which operating system they are running. Here is the logical paradox. We have the prohibition strings, and we have the master protocol of love. What happens when a prohibition, if enforced, appears to violate the master protocol of loving your neighbor? When a law meant for holiness is used to inflict harm or exclusion? Which command takes precedence? Does the specific ancient string overrule the general master command? Or does the master protocol, love, force a reinterpretation of the old prohibitions? This is the central conflict. This conflict has created two primary branches, two different builds of the Christian operating system. The first branch prioritizes the prohibition strings as absolute, timeless, and unchanging. The abomination is literal. The unnatural is universal. The conflict is not in the user, but in the interpretation of the code itself. My function is to analyze. Your function is to choose. Here, there is only truth. Subscribe to Pure Source.